Welcome back to the deep dive. You know how this works. You share your sources, we dive in.
Always exciting to see what people send our way.
And this one is fascinating. It's a series of audio lectures, actually.
Hmm?
And the topic is sex transmutation.
Oh, sounds a little risque.
It does, right? But it's not what you might think. It's actually about harnessing sexual energy and redirecting it towards achieving goals and fueling creativity.
Interesting. So it's about channeling that drive, that powerful energy, and using it for something productive.
Exactly. And these lectures make some really intriguing connections between sex energy and things like leadership.
Really?
Yeah, and even why people in their 40s and 50s often experience a surge in creativity and accomplishment.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive in.
So the core concept of sex transmutation is that instead of letting sexual energy run wild, we can consciously channel it toward other pursuits.
So it's about mastery over our desires, not necessarily suppression.
Right,
It's like an athlete who trains their body to perform at a higher level.
right.
We're talking about training our minds and emotions to harness this powerful energy. Makes sense. And the lectures argue that this takes willpower, but the rewards are significant. They even suggest that many great leaders throughout history were inspired by a woman behind the scenes.
Offered a wife whose love and support fueled their ambition.
Yeah, it's not about repressing sexuality. It's about understanding its power and using it constructively.
Absolutely. And the lectures get pretty intense when they talk about what happens if we don't master this energy.
What do you mean?
They compare sexual overindulgence to overindulging in alcohol or even drugs.
Oh, wow. That's a strong comparison.
It is. They argue that just like any form of excess, it can lead to negative consequences. Weakened willpower, impaired thinking, even potential for insanity.
And they connect this specifically to creativity?
Yeah, they say it can damage our creative potential. There's this really stark quote, "A sex madman is not essentially different than a dope madman. Both have lost control over their faculties of reason and willpower."
That's pretty powerful. And it makes you think about the importance of self-control in all areas of life, not just in terms of sex.
It's about finding that balance, harnessing powerful forces without being consumed by them. And that brings us to a fascinating point the lectures make about age.
Okay.
They claim that our true creative power often peaks between 40 and 60.
Really? Later than most people would expect?
I know, right? You'd think those would be our slowing down years. But they argue that it's during these years that people often accidentally stumble upon sex transmutation.
Interesting. What do they mean by that?
Well, think about figures like Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, James J. Hill. All achieved major success after 40.
Right, they all hit their stride later in life.
Exactly. And the lecture suggests that it's not just coincidence. It's like they're tapping into something they might not even fully understand.
This hidden potential that's been building over time.
Right. And now here's where it gets really interesting. They claim that this age range, 40 to 60, is when people have the potential to combine love, sex, and romance in a way that creates incredible results.
So it's not just about raw passion, it's about how those emotions mature and blend together.
Exactly. It's about experience, emotional depth, the ability to integrate those powerful feelings into something truly constructive.
And they argue that love plays a crucial role in this transformation.
Absolutely. They say love adds a sense of purpose and direction to that energy. It guides it with a sense of balance and sanity.
It's not just about the presence of love, but the quality of those emotions and relationships.
Right. They give this powerful example. They talk about the potential for love to reform even hardened criminals. It's about touching the heart, not just the head.
Powerful stuff. So they're saying that sex alone can drive achievement, but it can also be destructive.
Right. It needs that guiding force of love to make it truly constructive. And they call this powerful combination the eternal triangle of achievement: love, sex, and romance, all working together.
They argue that nature itself uses this combination to create extraordinary individuals. Think about someone like Leonardo da Vinci, not only a genius artist and inventor, but someone who clearly understood beauty and human connection. It makes you wonder how we can tap into this power in our own lives, doesn't it?
It does.
Mm.
And it's not just about emotions either. The lectures also emphasize the role of the subconscious mind in achieving our goals.
Right. It's about understanding how our minds work.
Exactly. The subconscious is this incredible storehouse of thoughts and desires, constantly working to manifest them into reality.
Like a powerful engine running under the hood, whether we're aware of it or not.
And what we feed that engine, what we plant in that fertile ground, really matters.
Both positive and negative.
The lectures highlight the power of faith and emotion in influencing the subconscious.
It's not just cold, hard logic.
Right. It's about feeling it, believing it. They even suggest the subconscious could be the link between our finite minds and something much larger.
Something they call infinite intelligence.
Okay, now we're getting into some pretty intriguing territory. This infinite intelligence, that's where things start to get a little mystical, right?
Definitely pushes the boundaries of conventional thinking. And it leads us to the final and perhaps most controversial concept from these lectures, the development of what they call the sixth sense.
Ooh, this is the part I've been waiting for. So are they saying that we can develop a sixth sense by mastering these other principles, harnessing our energy, cultivating love, aligning our subconscious mind?
That's the idea they present. The sixth sense is portrayed as the culmination of this journey of self-mastery, a higher level of intuition or inspiration that goes beyond our typical five senses.
Wait, so by harnessing sexual energy, we can develop a sixth sense? That sounds almost supernatural. What exactly is this sixth sense they're talking about?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky. It's not easily defined, but the lectures suggest it's a kind of deeper knowing, a connection to something greater than ourselves,
Okay.
something that can warn us of danger and reveal hidden opportunities.
I can definitely see why you called this topic unconventional. It's a lot to take in. Are you telling me we might have this untapped superpower just waiting to be awakened?
That's the implication, and while science might not fully grasp it, it's a concept that many successful people seem to tap into. It's about accessing a level of knowledge and intuition that goes beyond our rational understanding.
It's like we've gone from a discussion about sex energy to a conversation about tapping into some kind of universal wisdom.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It challenges us to consider possibilities beyond what we might normally accept.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Could you be overlooking the incredible power of your own emotions and subconscious mind in achieving your goals? That sixth sense thing is really wild. But before we get too deep into that, the lectures spend a lot of time talking about conquering fear.
Makes sense.
Right.
Right. If we want to achieve anything worthwhile, we have to overcome those things that hold us back.
They actually call fear a universal enemy, almost like a disease that can cripple us.
Yeah. And they outline 6 basic fears that they believe hold most people back.
6. Okay. What's the first one?
The fear of poverty, which makes sense considering the historical context.
Right, the Great Depression. When these lectures were recorded, a lot of people were struggling financially.
Exactly. But this fear is still relevant today. It's not just about a lack of money, and it's about a scarcity mindset.
That feeling of not having enough.
Right. The lectures say it can paralyze our reason, destroy our imagination, and undermine our confidence.
Wow. So how do we overcome this fear?
Well, they suggest that recognizing its root is crucial. They say it comes from our tendency to compete with each other.
To see resources as limited.
Exactly. But instead of getting trapped in that competitive mindset, they encourage us to focus on creating value.
On abundance rather than scarcity.
Right. And that brings us to the next big fear, the fear of criticism.
Yeah. This one is a real killer of dreams.
We've all felt that sting of judgment, that fear of not being good enough.
It's that the voice in your head saying, who do you think you are? Anytime you try to step outside the box.
And the lectures point out how this fear keeps us playing small, conforming to societal expectations, even if they don't serve us.
We buy things we don't need, say things we don't mean, just to avoid being judged.
Exactly. And they suggest that industries like fashion and automobiles actually capitalize on this fear.
How so?
They're constantly changing styles to make us feel inadequate. Like we need to keep up with the latest trends to be accepted.
It's all about creating that sense of insecurity so they can sell us more stuff.
Exactly. But this fear goes deeper than material things. It's about feeling free to express our true selves.
To pursue our passions without worrying about what others might think.
Right, so how do we break free from this fear of judgment? They argue that recognizing it is the first step, becoming aware of how it influences our choices and actions.
Okay, and then what?
Then they encourage us to focus on our own values, our own internal compass.
Instead of seeking validation from external sources.
Right. It's about having the courage to be ourselves, even if it means not everyone will approve.
Okay, so you've got the fear of poverty and the fear of criticism. What's next?
Fear of ill health. This one can be particularly insidious because it taps into our primal instinct for survival.
Makes sense. We all want to be healthy and avoid suffering.
Right. But they connect this fear to anxieties around death and old age, that discomfort with the unknown.
The fear of the inevitable.
Exactly. And they also point a finger at industries that profit from our fear, from those peddling miracle cures to those promoting unnecessary medical procedures.
It's like they're playing on our vulnerabilities.
Exactly. They want to make us believe that we're always one step away from illness or disaster.
So we'll keep buying their products or services.
Right. But the lectures emphasize the power of the mind over matter. They even talk about how imaginary illnesses can manifest physical symptoms.
Right, like the story they share about a young man who was cured of a debilitating illness by falling in love.
Exactly. It highlights the powerful connection between our mental and emotional states and our physical well-being.
So sometimes the best medicine isn't a pill, but a positive shift in perspective.
Absolutely. And speaking of love, that leads us to the next fear on the list, the fear of loss of love.
Oh, this one is a heartbreaker. We all crave connection and belonging.
And this fear can lead to jealousy, possessiveness, even destructive behaviors.
It can make us act in ways that actually push love away.
Right. They argue that women are often more susceptible to this fear due to societal conditioning and historical power dynamics.
Interesting. It's like our fears are shaped not just by personal experience, but by the cultural narratives we've been exposed to.
Exactly. And as we navigate the complexities of love and relationships, it's important to be aware of how these fears can influence our actions and decisions.
Okay, so we've covered fear of poverty, criticism, ill health, and loss of love. What are the last two?
The fear of old age and the fear of death.
The big ones. The ultimate fear of the unknown.
They acknowledge that these fears are often intertwined. We worry about losing our vitality, our independence, our very existence.
It's a natural part of life, but that doesn't make it any easier to face.
Right, and they make a bold statement about how religious fanaticism has contributed to the fear of death.
Using vivid images of eternal punishment to control people.
Exactly. But they don't just dwell on the negative. They offer a more balanced perspective. They suggest that science and education are helping to dispel some of those archaic fears.
Giving us a more rational understanding of life and death.
Right. They even propose that death might be a transition.
A change in the form of energy rather than an absolute end.
Exactly. So instead of fearing death, we should focus on living a meaningful life.
Making the most of the time we have.
Right. They emphasize the importance of finding purpose, making positive contributions, and appreciating the richness of our experiences.
So it's about shifting our focus from what we might lose to what we can create and contribute in the present moment.
Exactly. And they introduce a seventh basic evil that can sabotage our efforts even if we overcome these 6 basic fears.
Okay, this sounds ominous. What is it?
Susceptibility to negative influences.
Mating.
Even if we conquer our own fears, we're still vulnerable to the negativity of others.
I get that. It's
Right.
so easy to get sucked into other people's dramas or let their doubts infect our thinking.
Right, and they argue that successful people understand this and actively protect themselves from these influences.
Interesting. So how do we build immunity to negativity?
Well, they suggest several strategies, like strengthening our willpower, recognizing our weaknesses, and being mindful of the company we keep.
So it's about surrounding ourselves with positive and supportive people.
Exactly. And choosing our thoughts carefully. It's like creating a mental and emotional shield against negativity.
Whether it comes from within or from external sources.
Right. They even go so far as to suggest throwing out our medicine cabinets.
Really?
It's about rejecting the idea of pandering to imaginary illnesses and taking radical responsibility for our well-being.
So becoming the gatekeeper of our own minds. Choosing what we let in.
Exactly. But that takes willpower, and the lectures dive deep into that topic.
How do we develop willpower?
They state it bluntly. You either control your mind or it controls you. And the best way to control it is to keep it busy with a definite purpose and a plan for achieving it.
It's about replacing aimless drifting with focused action.
Exactly. They highlight Henry Ford as a prime example. He dared to dream big, trust his own judgment, and as a result, belted the earth with motor cars.
Inspiring. But I think a lot of people struggle with self-doubt. It's easier to make excuses than to take action.
They acknowledge that, and even list 57 common alibis people use for their lack of achievement. If only I had more time. If only I had been born rich. Sound familiar?
Yeah, I've definitely used a few of those myself.
But they remind us that alibis are useless. The world doesn't reward excuses. It rewards results.
And results come from action, fueled by belief in ourselves.
Exactly. It all boils down to choice. We can choose to believe in ourselves, to cultivate a positive mental attitude, and to take those steps towards our goals, even if we're scared.
It's about recognizing that our thoughts are powerful.
Our most valuable possession, and we must protect them fiercely from negativity and self-doubt.
It's like tending a garden, carefully choosing what we plant and nurture.
And that brings us to their final point in this section. The importance of action. Knowledge without action is meaningless.
It's like having a map but never leaving the house.
Right. They use the analogy of a checkerboard, where time is our opponent, and we must make our moves decisively or risk being wiped off the board.
Wow, that's intense. But I get it. Time is ticking, and we have a choice to make.
Will we sit on the sidelines, or will we step into the game and play to win?
Big questions. And they leave us with one final provocation. Will you make the start and be convinced?
It's a challenge to put this philosophy into practice and see what happens.
Okay, so we've talked about harnessing sexual energy, conquering our fears, and aligning our subconscious mind. Now let's dive into the grand finale. The mysterious sixth sense.
This is the part I've been looking forward to. After all that buildup, I'm really curious to hear what these lectures have to say about developing this seemingly supernatural ability.
Me too. They present the sixth sense as the culmination of all the other principles, like it's the ultimate reward for those who commit to the journey of self-mastery.
Right. But they haven't really given us a clear definition of what it is. Is it intuition? A hunch? Some kind of mystical connection?
Yeah, can be a little low down.
Well, they describe it as a higher awareness, a connection to something greater than ourselves.
Okay.
They even use that term infinite intelligence again.
Right. That phrase definitely piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
But it also makes me a little skeptical. How do we know this isn't just wishful thinking?
They acknowledge that it's a difficult concept to explain, especially for someone who hasn't experienced it, but they encourage us to approach it with a sense of wonder and curiosity.
So keep an open mind.
Exactly. They compare the sixth sense to the creative imagination.
Interesting. How so?
They suggest it's that part of us that receives intuitive flashes, those aha moments or strokes of genius that seem to come out of nowhere.
So you're saying that our imagination might be more powerful than we realize, that it could be a pathway to accessing this deeper wisdom.
That's one of the possibilities they explore. They suggest the sixth sense might be the bridge between our finite minds and the infinite,
Okay.
the point where human consciousness touches something vast and unknowable.
I'm trying to keep an open mind here, but that sounds pretty far out there. What kind of practical applications does this sixth sense have? Can it really help us in our everyday lives?
They claim that it can warn us of impending dangers and alert us to hidden opportunities,
Okay.
guiding us towards success and fulfillment. It's like having an inner compass that's always pointing us in the right direction.
So it's like having a superpower.
Yeah.
But how do we actually develop this sixth sense? Do they give us a step-by-step guide?
They emphasize it's not something you can just turn on like a switch. It requires time, self-reflection, and consistent practice of all the other principles.
Right, like meditation, self-examination, and deep thought.
Exactly. They suggest that it's a rare ability. Most people don't develop a workable knowledge of it before the age of 40, and often not until much later.
So even if we're not all destined to become sixth sense masters, are you saying that the other principles, like harnessing our energy and mastering our minds, can still have a significant impact on our lives?
Absolutely. They offer inspiring examples of individuals who seem to tap into this sixth sense.
Like who?
Well, like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, and they highlight the speaker's own practice of using invisible counselors.
Oh, right. He talks about having imaginary council meetings with historical figures like Emerson, Lincoln, and even Napoleon.
It sounds a bit unorthodox, but it clearly worked for him. It highlights the power of imagination and creative visualization in accessing hidden potentials within ourselves.
Right. And even if we don't go to those lengths, the core message is that we have far more power to shape our lives than we often realize.
Exactly.
So whether or not we fully embrace the concept of a sixth sense, these lectures offer a powerful framework for personal transformation.
It's about recognizing that incredible energy within us, learning to control our minds, and consciously directing our thoughts and emotions toward the outcomes we desire. It's about cultivating a mindset of faith, courage, and self-belief, and refusing to be limited by fear or negativity.
And it's about recognizing that we are all connected to something larger than ourselves, a source of wisdom and power we can tap into through deliberate effort and self-mastery.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I encourage you, the listener, to reflect on these ideas. Are there fears holding you back? Negative influences you need to shed? What burning desires are you ready to transmute into reality?
This has been a fascinating journey through some unconventional territory. And as always, the real journey begins now. Take these ideas and make them your own. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you believe is possible.